Hey everybody, welcome to Landscape Rescue. Today is going to be a special video here to Home Depot. We're going to see if we can find some really cool deals. So let's do it. This is what I'm really excited about. 50% off flowering trees. And at a big box store, 50% off of a 7-gallon or a 5-gallon tree means you're basically going to steal this thing. Yoshino Cherry, not in great shape, but for $15, right? Because it's $29.98. For $15, this Yoshino, I would take a stab at this as a Yoshino, especially if I just had an area where I needed a nice sized tree that I could see from inside my house. Maybe, you know, because the springs sometimes are real rainy. They're kind of cold when the Yoshinos are blooming. Sometimes it's just not the most hospitable weather. And if you're gonna have 2 weeks of kind of weather that you're not really gonna go out and enjoy your outdoor spaces, it's really nice to have a big flowering tree to kind of welcome you into the spring, somewhere that you can see it from inside the house, right? Where do you eat breakfast? Where do you watch TV, right? So use your windows as kind of a, well, window to your outdoor space. Just maybe something to think about, but I would take a shot at this for sure. This top is probably, the top doesn't look that great, but this looks really good. So right here is about where I would trim it, or I would keep this branch. And I would just start staking this, and I would try to reestablish the central leader. And for $15, I would do it. Now the Yoshino Cherry gets pretty big. I would say 25 or 30 feet. It says 25 on the tag by the same spread. If you're gonna prune them up, that's gonna give you a little bit more usable space underneath the tree if you wanted to do hostas or something like that. That's a really good deal, $15? I don't even know. I mean, I guess I could kind of plant it at work. That would be good for $15. We'll think about it. Let's go see some more stuff. This is a Eastern Redbud, nothing fancy about it. So it's just a regular Cercis canadensis in a 7-gallon pot. But I wanted you to look down here. See how this has started to sucker, right? So you have all these big giant suckers that are coming off of the, basically from the root. Redbuds can handle shade. They can also handle sun. So they're shade tolerant is what we like to say about a redbud, because it's an under canopy tree. It grows in the forests, under the canopy, along wood lines, things like that. Redbuds are pretty stinking tough. I feel like redbuds are very susceptible to turmoil in the spring. They do not like having all their leaves frozen off, which none of them really like that. But I feel like redbuds are just more susceptible to that. I feel like I lose redbuds to that more than anything else. These suckers are suckering because it's getting market share down at the bottom of that trunk, right? So the tree is a business, and it's only gonna take advantage of market share that's actually there. So it's getting sunlight down here. These roots are close to the surface. So then what it's gonna do is it's going to send out a satellite business, right? They're gonna put out a satellite store to start gathering that sunlight so it can produce more income, which in the plant world is sugar. So Eastern Redbud, $49.99 for a 7-gallon, 50% off is gonna bring us to 20 bucks. And that's a really good deal. I mean, think about it. You could get 5 of these things for $100 and just pop them in your wood line, or pop them around the backside of your property. Redbuds typically aren't the longest lived tree. So 30 years, you get about 30 years out of them. Prune it, keep those branches from crossing other branches, and just produce a very pretty tree. And I think it would be more than worth $25, and it will be fun. Here's another one, Sugar Thyme crabapple. A Sugar Thyme crabapple. Ooh, that was risky. I shouldn't have picked this up by the trunk, because you and I both know how big box stores, when they buy a tree, a lot of the times it's not grown into the pot that they had bumped it to. So the grower has bumped it to a 7-gallon, it's still a 5. This one's in pretty good shape though. So if you're looking for a clearance tree, or you have a wood line that you're wanting to make more pronounced. Just make sure it's a full sun wood line. Those are my favorite to work with. I can lift it up and I can kind of get a general idea by pulling on the trunk a little bit to see where the soil is moving. And if it's moving on the outside of the pot, then it's grown in relatively well. Well, if you have 15 or 20 to choose from, I would choose the ones that are grown in the best. More root mass, and root mass is a direct representation of the survivability. You are also going to be a direct contributor to the survivability, how attentive you're going to be to your brand new trees. If it's well grown in and that root ball's intact when you go to plant it, chances are good. Sugar Thyme crabapple is white. It's about a 15 or 20 footer, just like most crab apples. It doesn't get huge. White flowers. The berries are pronounced in some way, and I can't remember if they're Sugar Thyme is one that I like the most. I think it's got like a coral, like a pink berry. So when these crab apples, you can kind of see them here, when these little crab apples start to mature, they'll turn red. And don't worry about crab apples. They shrivel up, they fall into your turf. Crab apples have never been a pain in the butt to me. I like them. It's more of an ornamental. I like to plant them en masse. Just knock your socks off in the spring is kind of what I like. But you see, any of these berries, any place where there was berries, there was flowers. And when I say berries, I mean apples, I guess. But yeah, that's a pretty good deal. $25 for a 7-gallon crabapple, pretty good deal. Here's another crabapple, the Red Baron. Look how pretty this thing is. Red Baron crabapple, nice size, $25. So that's a good deal. That's a good deal. I like that a lot. Profusion crabapple right here. Look at this. I mean, look, they don't look that pretty now, but guess what? When you were a baby, you didn't look pretty either. You're all chubby, pooping on yourself. Give them a chance. They'll impress you. Just, yeah, for $25, how can you go wrong? Wow, good deals on the trees at Home Depot. I'm pretty impressed. That was awesome. Field potted or B&B in pot is what these pom-pom, these would be considered a pom-pom boxwood, right? So this is kind of a beginning stage pom-pom. You're gonna be the one that has to prune this. And I get a lot of questions about this at the nursery. Funny enough, people assume that they grow like this. I mean, you would be surprised how many times I'll show somebody a spiral tree at my nursery and somebody asks, do you have to make them do that? I was like, yes. Because never once have I been watching the Discovery Channel and seen a pom-pom or a spiral in nature. The meerkats aren't running around a pom-pom boxwood. It doesn't happen in nature. It's contradictory to how plants grow, right? They're taking advantage of market share. So there is some very unique and cool looking plants in nature, but if you look at them and you understand how plants grow, it makes sense. This is strictly ornamental. It makes 0 sense in capitalizing market share. It doesn't make sense to do that. So you're going to be the one that's responsible for keeping it in the pom-pom shape. It's a little bit of a challenge to get this to do it on your own. So if I am going to do this, I like somebody to have already done it, and I'm just going to be maintaining it. That works best for me because I don't have 10 years to move stuff around. But, well, I guess I do. And I probably have a lot of fun at doing it. But anyway, I wanted to talk about B&B, right? Balled and burlap. That's what we call in the industry B&B, ball and burlap. This is a field potted. See this burlap is sticking up at the top. Burlap's biodegradable, all right? So you don't have to take the bag off when you plant something. You just want to cut the string away if it's a non-biodegradable string. A lot of times they'll do that to hold the root ball together because remember, you're trying to maintain the integrity of the root ball until it is in the hole. You want that root ball to be, I guess, as structurally sound as possible. So what they do is they'll ball and burlap these in the field, and then they'll have a bunch of pots, and they'll put them in a pots, or they'll haul them off to an area, and then they'll pot them up real quick, and then they'll put them out on a pad. The survivability of a ball and burlapped tree is lower than if it was pot grown, right? You're not changing anything for me when I see something ball and burlap that's in a pot. There's more water retention ability in a field potted, right, plant than there is at ball and burlap. Not to mention the fact they're easy to throw on a pallet and then park them to where people can take advantage of that. So there is some advantages over B&B when it comes to field potted. Not to mention the fact that if this sits out in a garden center for 3 months, it can grow into the medium that they've put into the pot. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not as good as something that's been pot grown, if that makes sense. They're usually significantly cheaper, less labor to produce this tree. Look what I found, this little guy just hiding in the back. This is a loblolly, and loblollies grow really well for us here. They are basically what you would make a telephone pole out of. They get very, very, very tall, 50 to 70 feet. If it's packed in here with some other loblollies, right, making it reach for the sky, they'll get even taller than that. Loblollies are really cool. If you like needles and you've got the space, this is a good one. I like the loblollies. I've seen some people who have lined their driveway or lined the public street before they go into their driveway out in the county, and they've put these out, and I feel like they grow pretty stinking fast. They're they act a little drunk in their adolescence, but when you start them young like this trunk needs to sway in the wind and build scar tissue up in that trunk. That's why you don't want to leave something staked for longer than 6 months. And then when you do stake it, I like to do a low stake. I like to stake it down here, right? Because the whole purpose of a stake is to keep the root ball in the tree in the ground. I mean, you can give it a little bit of help if the rain keeps weighing it down or something like that, but trees have been around for a while. They've got it figured out. So I like to do a low stake, and then I like to spray paint some orange or pink tips on my stake so nobody trips on them. But loblollies are a good evergreen. I like the loblolly. And this one is $30. It's not on sale, but I wanted to talk about them because they are cool. So that was the Home Depot trip. We found those really good deals on those flowering trees, and you know, a lot of times you just make your rounds and you just see what's kind of cool, and maybe you go back to a place. What I've discovered that when I go back, it's later in the day, a lot of times stuff's not there anymore, so I kind of miss out on that deal. I don't know, I feel like it was a successful trip to Home Depot. I feel like it was worth making the stop. Unfortunately, I have a smaller yard, so until I can get a bigger house and get some property and start working on a wood line, nothing would really work for me here. I don't know, it was kind of fun. We had this little powwow with some of the employees early on. I think they thought I was somebody important. Boy, were they mistaken.